Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi, wa man walahu wa ba'd. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una, wa anfa'na bima alamtana, wa zidna ilman ya Rabbil alameen. So to answer your question, Sheikh Ra'ad, I think that there's some preliminary understanding about the nature of contracts in Islamic law. There is no doubt that a sale contract for the sale of an item by its owner, which is known and identified, and for an agreed upon price, is permissible. There's no disagreement about that. There's also no disagreement that a cash loan for an interest rate over time is impermissible and it is riba. There's no disagreement. The trouble that we have is that all of our Islamic finance contracts are here in the middle. They're not clearly sales contracts. They're not clearly loan contracts. They're not clearly agency contracts. They're not clearly partnership contracts. They're not clearly lease contracts. They're somewhere in the middle. They've taken items from all of these things and mixed them together. And because of that, some of the companies are closer to being acceptable than others. Some of the companies that brand themselves as Islamic finance companies or Islamic mortgage companies, they are closer to being permissible than others. When you have different contracts under Islamic law, that contract can be either aqdun sahih or aqdun fasid. It can be a valid contract or an invalid contract. And I know what all of you are saying, just tell me which company to go with. We're getting there. So you can have a valid contract where all of the conditions and stipulations for it being acceptable are taken into consideration. And you can have an invalid contract where maybe one or several of those conditions is not met. We also have another category that sits right in the middle of valid and invalid contracts. العقد الذي يتوسط بين العقد الصحيح والعقد الفاسد يسمى عقدا موقوفا في الفقه. This is something called a suspended contract. يبدأ فاسدا فيصحح. It starts off invalid, problems in it. But then it's corrected through the completion of that sale or lease or whatever that may be. So in the companies that currently offer mortgages, without naming names, there are some who use a system called musharaka mutanaqisa, a diminishing partnership. And this means that they want to create a partnership between you and them. You provide 20% of the money, they provide 80% of the money, and then they purchase a home in your name, and then you buy them out of that position over time. So far, so good. Remember, we said there are valid and invalid contracts. So when a company comes and says, yes, brother, alhamdulillah, our contracts are halal, we have musharaka mutanaqisa, we have a diminishing musharaka, nothing to worry about. Still something to worry about. Why? Because you can have musharaka sahiha wa musharaka fasida. You can have a valid musharaka, valid partnership, and an invalid partnership. Sheikh Ra'ad and I went into business together. And I said, I'm going to put up 50,000, he's going to put up 50,000. But I made the stipulation that in our business, anytime there's a loss in the business, he has to handle it. It comes from his part of the profit, not from mine. Is that valid or invalid? Invalid. Bittifaq al-fuqaha. Invalid. Now this is the problem with most Islamic mortgage companies. They are providing you this and they're saying, we will go into this partnership, but if there are fundamental expenses related to the house, you have to bear them. If there are insurance costs, you have to bear them. If there is loss, you have to bear it. If there's a payout from the insurance, we get it first. And we take guarantees from you, your business, and all of your collateral. That is what essentially makes that mortgage scheme invalid. Now, some of you are automatically going to say, but I went and I did that last year and I bought a home. What do I do now? This is why I mentioned the issue of al-uqud al-mawqufa, suspended contracts. It starts off invalid, but then when the asset is assigned to your name and you own it and you simply owe a debt on it, you now don't have to do anything. You simply have to pay down that debt. And it's not obligatory for you to get out of that mortgage or to change or anything like that. I want to put that up front so that nobody feels like we went to Laylat 27 looking for Rahma and Sheikh Baras Adab. Now we're going to go home and have to call our mortgage lender the next day. So if you've already have that contract, you already have an asset that's written in your name, titles in your name, and you're paying the debt down on it, that's all you have to do from here out. But if you're looking to purchase a home, then you should be looking for something that avoids the overcomplication of the situation. Meaning diminishing musharaka, ijara waqtina, ijara wa hiba, all of these things, lease to own and diminishing partnerships, all have these issues. They all have these issues of conditions that create or make them invalid. So what are you to do? You should look for a company that's going to, number one, purchase the home in their own name and therefore take ownership of it. And then number two, resell it to you through a separate sale with a markup. This is also something which is permissible. So I purchase the home on the market for $250,000, and then I sell it to Umar here because this is shabab yabni hayatu. So he wants to, have his maritable abode and get ready. So I sell it to him for $300,000 over 30 years. He pays me back monthly. I purchased something, I own it. I'm selling something that I own to him. He now owns it. He's paying me back for that debt. That's also permissible. There are a few companies that will do that. Because once I own the home and it's in my name and it's my title and I simply owe the debt on it, then I can do whatever with I want, and I'm liable for the insurances and the expenses, and I also keep all of the equity and all of the upside and the gains that are found in that house. So this is a very long-winded answer. And just to give you an idea, like 4 years ago I did a seminar on this that was about 4 or 5 hours long. So we could keep going for a long time. But what I will say is that if you're not going to use one of these Islamic companies, then you can look to even some of the conventional banks who have forfeited and foreclosed properties for sale on their books that they own and they have title to. That's another opportunity, but you have to ask for the lists from them. Number two, there is a movement now, the whole mortgage system in the United States is changing. There's a movement now called the e-buyer movement. And what the e-buyer movement, these are large groups of investors that have millions and millions of dollars, right? So companies like Open Door and others, they buy the home, title it in their name, and then resell it to whomever comes to buy from them. If you purchase from them, you're buying something from them that they own for a markup over time, exactly like we talked about with Umar, and so that would be permissible as well. Or if you know the owner of the home and you want to go into an agreement with them to purchase from them over time, that would be permissible as well. And I'm sure that you all have a lot more questions on that topic, but maybe we can come back and do more detailed presentation on it, inshallah ta'ala. But there are options out there. But what I want to impress upon you today is that your personal situation may be different than other people's. So because one person purchased the home in one way and another purchased it another way, I don't want you to think that all hope is lost or that the door is completely open to do whatever you want. Ask specific to your personal situation so that you can get the answer that helps you make the decision that keeps you with the closest to being something which is halal and keeps you closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Jazakallah khair. طيب, we will take inshallah 2 questions. Okay, and the Sheikh will repeat your question so everyone can hear it. Zaheen?